Match number 7 of the ICC Cricket World Cup 2025. And once again, I have Nia with me. Nia, welcome to the show. It's two blockbuster teams, but strange thing is that both the teams are coming from a defeat in their opening game of the season. That is New Zealand taking on South Africa. And the White Ferns face the heavyweights of the likes of Australia, while the Proteas got a massive hammering from the likes of England. First things first, both the matches, your thoughts on one of the games. Firstly, Australia versus New Zealand. What was your take on New Zealand's performance?
Hi, Preetham. Again, really just happy to be here and discuss all things women's cricket. The Women's ODI World Cup so far has absolutely delivered, right, with some really interesting matches.
Yep.
And I think just looking at the Australia-New Zealand encounter, I'd really say that, New Zealand did their best, sort of expose some chinks in the armor that Australia has constantly, managed to somehow hide in this,
Yep.
past few months. And it felt like the game could, sort of tilt in New Zealand's favor, but Australia continuing to do Australia stuff, just pulling off a win out of nowhere. Yet you had the likes of Sophie Devine sort of step up and do something special. Let's just briefly talk about the England South Africa game. I mean,
Mhm.
South Africa just looked absolutely listless, right? I mean, getting dismissed for
Exactly.
69 was, far from ideal for them. So I think there's definitely a lot of learnings to take away. And South Africa is one thing you'd never want to write off. Agreed, their net run rate has taken a massive beating because of that loss, but they would, be looking to just come all guns blazing and square off against New Zealand.
Mind you, Neha, when you were doing the squad previews of a couple of the teams, in your second preview, you said that you're making a late change and you're going towards South Africa. They did not start well in this season. But your thoughts when you said about New Zealand did give a good fight, and indeed, so they really gave a good fight to Australia. But it was a massive total. 327 to chase against a quality bowling attack of Australia was never easy. And also losing 2 wickets without even getting a run on your board is also the worst possible start for the White Ferns. But Sophie Devine, that 100, which came out to be a consolation 100, will that give her a lot of confidence moving into the tournament?
Absolutely, Preetham. I mean, Sophie Devine has been such an epitome of resilience and, an absolute champion
True.
player, right, for the White Ferns for the longest period of time. This is her last ODI World Cup. And she, truly embodied what it takes to be at that level, single-handedly, lead the team from the front with that,
Yep.
fighting knock. Had those wickets not fallen in clumps, the White Ferns would have possibly found themselves on the right side of the result. But come on, this is, you're chasing a target in excess of 300 versus a team like Australia, who can pull things back and control as per their will. So I think New Zealand would definitely take a lot of heart from that defeat. And Sophie Devine, just showing why she's one of the best.
Absolutely, but has there been a trend this season around so far early in the tournament? But we are seeing this coming out to be that from when a team is starting their bowling attack in an innings, one side it's starting with pace, from the other side it's starting with spin. In this very game, we saw Australia starting with Sophie Molyneux. In the other South Africa versus England, we saw Lindsay Smith creating havoc with a new ball, also starting with a spin from one end. Your thoughts? Will we see this more often in this tournament as it progresses? Because one side of pace and the other right side from speed.
Absolutely, Preetham. I think that's a brilliant observation there because this is a pattern we don't see very often,
Yeah.
right? It's probably more limited to say the T20 side of things, but because the way the ODI matches are sort of progressing, I think taking into consideration just the pitch and the conditions itself, teams
Yeah.
are feeling more inclined to do that. And each of the teams, right, are stacked with such quality spinners that probably the temptation to bring them in earlier to sort of enforce that mistake and get the wickets of the opposition is something that's running in the minds of the skipper. So I'm not entirely surprised that the strategy is being employed, and with the way the matches are panning out, teams batting first clearly seeming to struggle there a little
Correct.
bit. Seems like it's a good ploy there.
Absolutely, it's a very good ploy out there, and similarly, as I said, Lindsay Smith also doing her things with the new ball. For first time, she's representing England in an ODI World Cup. But how big is it for somebody like the England captain, Nigel Skipper, the bowler? Because whenever she bowls, she gives a balance to the side that keeps aside Lauren Filer, somebody like a Lauren Filer, out of the side. Did that surprise you?
I think a tad bit surprised with that, Preetham, but then again, it all boils down to the team combination, and there's just 11
Yeah.
players you can, choose at the end of the day. Nat Silverbrand, again, right? I mean, for the longest time, has just held the batting and the bowling side of things. Now, leading the team, again, it is just shouldering all of those responsibilities. Clearly hasn't taken a, dent on her captaincy responsibility side of things. Lindsay Smith, again, I think we can probably dedicate an entire episode to just discuss that spell and the way she's just going about her craft, making spin bowling look absolutely so
Yeah.
wonderful. So I think England would be, sort of still feeling comfortable with the fact that, hey, we have so many players who are stepping up at the right moment. Unfortunately, that South Africa was at the receiving end of that.
Absolutely, indeed. So, and we talk about South Africa versus New Zealand, starting with the Proteas, 69 all out, never in doubt an easy total or easy score to defend, and they were absolutely outplayed. I think, especially in the power play itself, because they lost almost half of the side, and that's when they lost the game. They went on to try and build something, but the top scorer was the only batter who got double-digit score. That was the wicketkeeper batter, Sinor Jafta, who generally bats at number 7 or 8, but this time was promoted up the order at number 6. Thankfully, so only to get 22 runs on the board.
Yeah, Preetham, I think it was quite a shambolic batting effort for South Africa, because the team is stacked with such superstars. Again, I
Yeah.
think in a lot of the previews I've just spoken about, if you have a team that has Laura Wolfart, Tasman Bridge, Sune Lees, you have Chloe Tryon, Annelie Dirksen, Nadine de Klerk. I mean, it's pretty much like a cheat code, right? You just have the best of the best players. But again, South Africa just looked very, out of sorts. A team that is, sort of struggling to, even
Yeah.
just be able to read the conditions and do something out of it. I also remember seeing this tweet of someone, mentioning that, a team that doesn't have Annelie Dirksen does not really make sense, because she's such a quality all-rounder, such a good
Absolutely. It
emerging player.
surprised me. It surprised me a lot seeing that Anneke Bosch is coming into the side ahead of Anneke Dirksen, because I expected Dirksen to be in the side, maybe bat at number 4 or number 3, because Sune Luz, I think, is batting way higher up the order. You mentioned about few South African names being superstar. Once again, my question, are South Africa heavily reliant on somebody like a Murray Zancap?
Yeah, Preetham, I think that over reliance is sort of, coming through. I think in the series versus, like Pakistan as well, a precursor to the series, we saw, the likes of Laura Wolfart and Tasman
Yeah.
Brits, like really step up, score a lot of runs. You had Marizan Karp also sort of do her thing, but you still had other characters, right? And that team would sort of step up. I think a very glaring weakness that we've all spoken about is the fact that, South Africa's spin bowling looks very weak, and
Mm.
probably they don't have other characters besides, non-Kululeko Malaba. But then that over reliance on not just Marizan Cup but other players too is quite telling, and hopefully it doesn't become a pattern through the World Cup.
Exactly. Hopefully, it doesn't become a pattern as the tournament progresses. But what about the conditions? This is the same venue where New Zealand faced Australia and faced a heavy defeat. It's the Holker Stadium in indoor. And once again, as you can see on your screen, Neha, it's a high scoring venue. As we said, small boundaries, but runs will flow. And 300 plus already was scored versus Australia, nearly chased down, but 200 plus was scored on the second innings versus New Zealand by New Zealand. Your thoughts on these two teams win the toss, up to bat or up to chase?
I think it's a no-brainer, Preetham. The team winning the toss will, want to bat first itself, sort of make the most of the conditions, put the bowling team under as much duress as possible under the sort of conditions we're looking at in Indore. It was probably going to be that sort of a batting, fest where you'd see teams just go all guns blazing and put up massive totals. South Africa will really need to, pull their socks up and see where they can sort of go from here, right? The match versus England was not an exhibition of the capabilities of the team, so it's probably time for them to, undo what has
Correct.
happened in the previous match. Yeah.
And under the floodlights, we see that the bowling is swinging more than what happens in the day. So that's not a no-brainer that you bat first and then put your swing bowlers into play, whether it's Lee Tahu for New Zealand or whether it's Murray Zancap for South Africa. What about the head-to-head between these two teams? As you can see it on your screen, 20 matches, heavily dominated, but it's very, very close. New Zealand 11, South Africa 9. Your thoughts on that? Can South Africa enter the double digits with a win?
Absolutely. I think they will be looking to go for that win, Preetham, no doubt about it, because this is again a quality side. They probably treat that loss as an aberration. But then I think South Africa, New Zealand, again, just is poised to be that sort of an encounter, because both teams are,
Correct.
in contention to sort of make it to that top 4. They haven't had the ideal start to their campaign. And yeah, what better way to, sort of just check that box, get a win against such an interesting opposition, and sort of chart their course for the rest of the journey.
100%. It's going to be a very, very good contest. We can keep aside the performance from South Africa and we know the quality they have in this side. Players to watch out for. I have 5 of them. Let's take a look into that. I've gone for Laura Wolvart and Marizan Cap for South Africa. For New Zealand, I've gone for Amelia Kerr and Sophie Devine. No brainers for that. X Factor, I'm going for Georgia Plymouth, the opener for New Zealand. Any changes for you, Neha?
I think again, Preetham, no complaints. Solid list there. These are proven customers. They every time step up and deliver for the team. So I'm not entirely surprised with your choices. Just to quickly add one more player to this list has to be Tasman Brits, right? The kind of prolific form that she has been in the past few months, it's impossible to sort of negate her presence in that South African batting lineup. Agreed, there is some struggle against spin, which could possibly come to plague her. But then, yeah, I think I'm just looking forward to seeing how Tasman Brits is able to make the most of it and sort of just progress. And hopefully, Annelie Dirksen also gets a look in
Yeah.
for this encounter too. So at least I'm I'm keeping my fingers crossed and would add them to this list.
She deserves a spot in the 11. And similarly, Tasmin Brits, she has been in a streak of 300s before it was broken in the previous game by the England bowlers. But that's all we have in terms of the players to watch out for. What about the predicted playing 11? Let's take a look into that. Neha, there you go. I've heard your question. I have heard your query, and we both matched the same in terms of South Africa's problems. Kennedy Dirksen is back into my side, and rest of the players pick themselves. One bad performance doesn't mean that they are not a good side. The top side, Dirksen comes into the side. For New Zealand, I've gone with an unchanged 11. They've made one change, but I'm going back to Rosemary Mayer. I'm bringing her back into the side in the bowling department. One change each from both the sides. Your thoughts?
Yeah, fair enough, Preetham. I completely see your rationale. I sort of subscribe to it as well because South Africa would really, be looking to go for that win. Having someone like an Anuri Dirksen join that team sort of deepens their batting as well. Will be interested to see where she sort of slots in that batting side of things. We've seen South Africa, sort of use her as a floater, throughout that. So for me, the South Africa playing 11 looks perfect as you have sort of selected.
Yep.
And even just the White Ferns side of things, the change of Rosemary Mayer coming in again seems like a fair shout, right? I think she just adds so much of balance to that bowling attack side of things, and even New Zealand too, right, would be pushing for that win. And probably a combination like this would really set them up well. So yeah, I think thumbs
100%.
up.
Both you're giving a thumbs up for both the teams I've gone for, and looks like it's a balanced side. But now pressure is on you because both the teams are coming from a defeat. And predictions time, Neha, it's match number 7, New Zealand versus South Africa. Whichever team wins will open their account. The team that loses are losing on back-to-back games. Your thoughts, your percentage?
Yeah, Preetham, I think this is a place where I'm really finding myself, put on a spot because both teams, right? I mean, we've spoken so much about them through this preview, but I'd still give the edge to, I think, New Zealand here. I really feel they would be able to pull off a win. So I'm probably going 60-40 here with, New Zealand possibly
Wow.
pushing for that win. Yeah.
60-40, still giving us good amount of edge towards the White Ferns as for Neha. 60-40 for New Zealand according to her, but throughout the show she said it's going to be a very, very good contest between two sides who are hungry to get the first win in the tournament. Thanks a lot, Neha. Thanks to all the viewers for watching this video. That's all we have in terms of match number 7, New Zealand versus South Africa. We are building India's smartest cricket community. Subscribe to become a part of it.